Welcome to the Utility Security Podcast, your command center for all things utility security. From power plant warriors to grid guardians, and even curious citizens, this podcast is your essential briefing on keeping up to date with knowledge and insights for securing our nation's utilities. Expert intel through interviews with security chiefs, tech wizards, and policy shapers. Tune in as we explore the latest vulnerabilities, industry best practices, and inspiring stories of resilience from the frontline heroes keeping our grids secure.
Okay, so imagine this drones, right? Like the ones we see delivering packages or like filming cool videos.
Yeah.
What if they became like a serious security threat? That's what we're going to look at today.
That's interesting.
We've got this article from Utility Security.
Okay.
It's called Danger from Above. The time is now to address drone risks. And it paints a pretty unsettling picture, to say the least.
Well, the interesting thing is the author, he's a retired military colonel.
Oh, wow.
He doesn't just like speculate about potential threats.
Well,
he points to like real world examples that are already happening.
Yeah, you're telling me some of these incidents are like downright disturbing.
Oh, yeah.
Like dropping feces and eggs on homeless encampments, chemicals into swimming pools. It's like something out of a bad prank video, but with like potentially serious consequences.
Exactly. And, you know, those examples highlight a key concern.
What's that?
Drones are becoming incredibly accessible and adaptable. Combine that with malicious intent. And the possibilities are troubling.
So it's not just about annoying pranks, right?
No.
These incidents show how easily drones could be used for like more sinister purposes.
Precisely. And the article points out that these incidents are likely just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, wow.
Especially when you consider how drone technology is rapidly evolving. Think about the use of drones in recent conflicts like Ukraine and Gaza.
Yeah.
They're being used in increasingly sophisticated ways.
Speaking of sophisticated, the article specifically mentions first-person view, or FPV drones.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly a tech whiz.
Sure.
So can you break down why those are so game-changing?
So FPV drones allow the operator to see in real time what the drone sees, essentially putting them in the cockpit.
Oh, wow.
This makes them incredibly precise and agile, and in a military context, that translates to highly targeted attacks.
Wow. So it's not just about drones dropping bombs anymore.
Right.
These FPV drones are like precision strike weapons. And the article highlights how alarming the speed of their evolution is.
Right. And what's being used on the battlefield today could easily trickle down to civilian use in the future.
Oh, geez.
Imagine the implications if that level of precision and control fell into the wrong hands.
That's a chilling thought. And it's not just explosives we should be worried about.
No.
The article lists all sorts of potential payloads. Liquids, surveillance equipment, jamming devices, even tools for cyber attacks.
This is where things get really interesting. Think about a drone with a jamming device targeting a hospital's communication systems during an emergency.
Oh, gosh.
The impact could be catastrophic. Or a drone equipped with a sprayer dispersing harmful substances over a densely populated area.
It's mind-blowing to think about the sheer diversity of threats. And the article mentions that the potential uses for drone payloads are only limited by imagination and creativity. It's kind of terrifying considering how quickly ideas can spread online.
Absolutely. And that's why understanding the entire drone ecosystem is so crucial.
Wow.
It's not just about the drones themselves, but the manufacturers, the developers of detection systems and counter-drone measures, the security services, even the training programs.
So there's a whole interconnected web.
Exactly.
Which makes tackling this issue even more complex. It's not just about taking down a few rogue drones.
Exactly. And to add to the complexity,
oh no,
the article points out that the law is struggling to keep up with this rapidly evolving technology. The Preventing Emerging Threats Act of 2018 is already being outpaced by the advancements in drone technology.
So we've got this potentially dangerous technology becoming more accessible and sophisticated every day. A complex ecosystem making regulation a nightmare, and laws that are lagging behind. What does this all mean for us? Are we just sitting ducks?
Not necessarily. While the situation is serious, the article does offer some hope.
Oh, good.
It emphasizes the importance of individual action and advocacy.
Okay, I'm all ears. What can we as everyday citizens actually do to make a difference? Contacting our representatives feels like a drop in the bucket, given how slowly things move in government.
You're right that it's not a quick fix, but it's still important. The more people voice their concerns, the more pressure there is on lawmakers to take action. And it's not just about national legislation. You can advocate for stronger standards within your own organizations, your workplace, community groups, professional associations to push for drone security protocols and emergency response plans.
So it's about being proactive on multiple levels, not just waiting for the government to catch up.
Precisely. And don't underestimate the power of collective action.
Yeah.
Joining industry groups or advocacy organizations focused on drone technology can amplify your voice and help shape the conversation.
This is actually pretty empowering. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by this kind of technological advancement. But there are things we can do to influence how it unfolds. It's not just about feeling helpless. We can be part of the solution.
Absolutely. We need to be informed, engaged, and proactive in shaping how drones are used and regulated. This technology is here to stay, and it's up to us to ensure it's used responsibly and safely.
We've covered a lot of ground here, from disturbing real-world incidents to the rapid evolution of drone technology, the complex ecosystem surrounding it, and the legal challenges we're facing.
For sure.
And we've explored some concrete steps you can take to be part of the solution.
Absolutely. We're talking about how we can advocate for change when it comes to all this drone stuff.
Yeah, I was actually pretty surprised by how much individual action can make a difference. It's easy to feel kind of powerless when you're talking about something as big and complex as drones. But that article really emphasized that we're not just along for the ride.
Exactly. We have a responsibility to be informed and engaged citizens, especially when it comes to tech that can impact our lives in such a big way.
Absolutely. Speaking of impact, let's dive a bit deeper into the specific threats that drones pose. The article made it clear that it's not just about drones carrying explosives.
Right. A drone with an IED is definitely scary, but the threats go way beyond that. Think about those liquid payloads the article mentioned. Imagine a drone with a container of hazardous chemicals,
Oh, wow.
targeting a public water supply.
That's a scary thought. And what about the surveillance aspect?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not hard to imagine drones with cameras being used for spying or gathering sensitive info.
Absolutely. And with technology getting smaller and smaller, you can pack some seriously powerful surveillance equipment onto a small drone. You could easily have a drone just discreetly monitoring people, collecting data without them knowing or consenting.
So we've got physical threats,
Yeah.
surveillance threats,
Yeah.
and then there's the potential for electronic warfare, right?
Right.
The article mentioned drones with jamming devices.
Right.
Can you explain how that works and what the implications are?
Sure. So jamming devices basically emit signals that interfere with other electronic signals.
Okay.
So a drone with a jammer could disrupt communications, GPS signals, even radar systems. Imagine the chaos that could cause at an airport. Even a small disruption could have major consequences.
Or during an emergency response.
Exactly.
Where communication is critical.
Exactly. And the article took it a step further, talking about something called a cyber attack payload.
A cyber attack from a drone. That sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. How would that even work?
It might sound futuristic, but it's not that far-fetched. Think of a drone carrying a device that can hack into nearby computer systems or networks. It could fly close to a target, a business, a government building, even someone's home, and launch a cyber attack.
So we're talking about a flying hacker, basically. It's kind of mind-blowing to think about all the different threats we're dealing with here.
It is, and it highlights how important it is to develop effective countermeasures, but as we talked about earlier, that's where things get even more complicated.
Well, let's start with the basics. How do you even know if there's a rogue drone in the area? How do you detect them?
There are a few different ways, each with its own pros and cons. One common method is using radio frequency sensors to detect the signals emitted by drones. It's kind of like listening in on the drone's communications.
Interesting.
But drones are getting better at hiding their signals, making this method less reliable.
So it's like an electronic hide-and-seek game. What are some other detection methods?
Well, there's radar, which is effective but can be expensive, and sometimes picks up things that aren't actually drones. Then there are optical sensors, which basically use cameras to identify drones visually. And there are even acoustic sensors that can pick up the distinct sound of a drone's propellers.
It sounds like there's a whole industry popping up around drone detection technology.
Yeah.
But detection is only one part, right? What happens when you've found a rogue drone? How do you actually stop it?
That's the million-dollar question, and unfortunately, there's no easy answer. The options for stopping drone threats, especially in the civilian world, are still pretty limited, and the technology is changing so quickly.
The article mentions something about kinetic countermeasures. What does that mean?
Kinetic countermeasures basically involve using force to take down a drone.
Okay.
This could mean anything from specialized projectiles that physically hit the drone to nets that get caught in the propellers.
So shooting the drone out of the sky.
Sometimes it can be that straightforward, but there are also more complex methods like using high-powered lasers to fry the drone's electronics.
Lasers? That sounds pretty intense. But I imagine there are some serious safety concerns with using that kind of force, especially in populated areas.
You're absolutely right. Kinetic countermeasures are usually a last resort, and there are often strict rules about using them because of the risk of hitting something you don't want to hit.
That makes sense. So what are the alternatives? Are there ways to stop a drone without using force?
There's a lot of research going on around non-kinetic countermeasures which try to stop a drone without causing physical damage.
Okay.
One promising area is electronic warfare.
Okay, back to electronic warfare.
Oh.
We talked about jamming devices earlier. How would that work as a countermeasure?
Imagine using a jammer to mess up the drone's communication links or its GPS navigation system.
Okay.
The drone would basically get lost and have to land or go back to its operator.
That's pretty clever.
Yeah.
But wouldn't there be a risk of disrupting other signals in the area? Like legitimate communications or GPS systems?
That's one of the big challenges with electronic warfare and a key reason why it's not used more often. It can be really hard to target just the rogue drone without affecting other things you don't want to affect.
So it sounds like we're still figuring out how to develop safe and effective countermeasures. It's a race against time, really, given how fast drone technology is advancing.
Exactly. It's a field that's constantly changing, and what works today might not work tomorrow.
This has been a really eye-opening look at the challenges of dealing with drone threats. But I'm also curious about the ethical side of things.
Yeah.
Using lasers and jamming signals sounds like something out of a spy movie.
Yeah.
Where do we draw the line when it comes to counter-drone technology?
That's a really important question. We need to carefully consider the ethical implications of every countermeasure, especially when it comes to things like privacy and making sure the response is appropriate to the threat.
Right, because if everyone starts using counter-drone technology, it could easily turn into a kind of surveillance arms race where everyone is watching everyone else.
Exactly. And how do we make sure that the way we respond to a drone threat is appropriate to the actual risk it poses?
Right.
If you see a drone hovering over your property, it's hard to tell if it's just someone taking pictures or if it's a serious threat.
And using force to take down a drone could have unintended consequences, especially in a crowded area. It's a lot to think about.
It is. And these ethical and legal questions are only going to become more important as drone technology keeps evolving.
Well, we've covered a lot in this part of our deep dive. We've explored the different threats posed by drones, from chemical attacks to cyber warfare, and we've talked about the challenges of detecting and mitigating those threats. It's clear that this is a complicated and rapidly evolving field.
All right.
What are your final thoughts before we move on to the last part of our deep dive?
I think the key takeaway is that drone technology is here to stay. It's not going away. And while it has some serious downsides, it also offers incredible opportunities. The future of drones is ultimately up to us.
Okay.
It's up to us to shape this technology in a way that helps humanity and avoids the problems we've discussed.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
We've covered some pretty intense stuff so far, like the threats and the countermeasures and all the ethical stuff, too.
Yeah, it's a lot to think about.
It really is. But I think it's good to end on a more positive note.
Yeah, for sure.
We've talked about the risks, but drones can also revolutionize the world in some pretty incredible ways.
Absolutely. Technology itself isn't good or bad. It all depends on how we use it.
Yeah.
And when it comes to drones, the future is still wide open.
Right, like you said earlier.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that future. What does a world with drones everywhere even look like?
Well,
I can't even imagine.
The possibilities are pretty mind-blowing. I mean, we're already seeing them used for package deliveries, aerial photography, search and rescue.
Yeah.
But the article makes it clear that's just the start.
So what else is there?
One area that's really interesting, and everyone's talking about it, is urban air mobility.
What's that?
Imagine drones as flying taxis, zipping people around busy cities.
Flying taxis. Sign me up.
Yeah.
But seriously, that sounds amazing and terrifying all at the same time. Are we really talking about skies full of drones carrying people? Yeah.
But the technology is developing really fast. Companies like Uber and Boeing are putting a lot of money into it, and there are already some test programs happening.
Wow.
There are definitely some safety and legal issues to figure out.
Right.
But it's not as crazy as it might seem.
So imagine this drone-filled skies, people flying around in taxis packages delivered by robots. It's like something out of a movie.
Yeah.
What about the noise, though? Wouldn't our cities become incredibly loud and chaotic?
That's a good point. And noise pollution is something that engineers are trying to solve. They're developing quieter drones using different engines and materials to make them less noisy. And then there's the idea of creating special air corridors for drones, kind of like flight paths for airplanes, to manage the flow of traffic and keep things organized.
Designated air corridors, quieter drones.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of people are working hard to make this vision of the future a reality.
They are, and it's not just about transportation.
Oh, right.
Drones have the potential to change so many other industries.
Like what? Give us some examples. How else could drones be used in the future?
Well, in agriculture, drones are already being used to check on crops, spray pesticides, even plant seeds.
Really?
They can help farmers be more efficient, save money, and be better for the environment.
That's pretty incredible. What about other fields?
In construction, drones can be used for site inspections, surveying, and even carrying materials. This can improve safety, make construction faster, and reduce labor costs.
Wow.
And in law enforcement, drones can help with search and rescue crime scene investigations and traffic monitoring. The possibilities are basically endless.
So it sounds like drones could make our lives easier, safer, and more efficient in so many ways. But we can't forget about the risks we talked about earlier. How do we balance all this amazing potential with the very real threats that drones pose? How do we make sure they're used for good and don't turn into some kind of dystopian nightmare?
That's the big question, and it requires a multi-pronged approach. We need education, collaboration, and proactive regulation.
Okay, break that down for me. What do you mean by education?
We need to teach people about both the good and bad sides of drone technology. We need to promote responsible drone use and encourage people to report any suspicious activity.
Got it.
More awareness is key.
What about collaboration?
We need governments, industry leaders, and researchers to work together to develop clear rules and standards for drone use. We need to share information and best practices to make sure everyone's on the same page working towards the same goal.
In proactive regulation.
We need rules that can adapt to the rapid changes in drone technology, but also rules that are strong enough to protect public safety and privacy. It's a tricky balance, but it's crucial if we want to use the power of drones while minimizing the risks.
So we're at a turning point. Drones have the power to change our world in incredible ways, but we need to be aware of the potential downsides and take steps to make sure this technology is used for good. What's the main thing you want our listeners to take away from all of this?
I think the most important thing to remember is that the future of drones isn't set in stone. It's something we're creating right now with our choices and actions. By staying informed, engaged, and proactive, we can help make sure that drones are a force for good in the future.
This has been a truly amazing deep dive. I feel like I've learned so much about drones and all the challenges and opportunities they bring.
Me too. It's been a really interesting conversation.
And to our listeners, remember, the future isn't something that just happens to us. We all have a part to play in building the world we want to live in. Stay informed, stay involved, and let's work together to make sure the drone revolution benefits all of humanity.
Don't forget to visit our website at utilitysecurity.com for exclusive intel, resources, and a community of fellow utility security professionals. Stay safe, stay informed, and stay tuned for your next mission briefing.
The views, information, and opinions expressed during this podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Utility Business Media and its employees. It is strongly recommended that you discuss any actions or policy changes with your company management prior to implementing